Happy New Year! This is James Mitchell, and I am so excited that you're here with me because this is going to be the first weekly reading for 2016. So let's get started. And here we are with the cards on the table and the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading, which is going to be starting the week of January the 4th, 2016, is the Archangel Power Tarot cards. They're by Doreen Virtue and Radleigh Valentine with the artwork by Jeff Bedrick. And so as I do for every one of these general weekly readings, I'm taking the deck in hand, and my question is, what do we need to know for the week ahead in terms of potentials and possibilities? And I love the idea of potentials and possibilities at this time of the year when we change into a new year, because I always feel a sense of anything's possible. You know, I feel like the opportunities that can come our way are limitless. So I'm always excited by that. So I'm shuffling the cards, and I'm going to be pulling 3 cards for the reading. And the first card, which is this one, will be the beginning of the week. So we're thinking Monday and Tuesday. And I'm going to continue to shuffle for the next card, which is going to represent the middle of the week. And that will be Wednesday, Thursday, excuse me. And the final card will be the card that rounds out the week. And that will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm going to put the deck aside and going to take a moment to make sure they all are in the shot. Great. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit. Oop. There we go. All right. So these are our cards for the week. And I always start off the reading by looking at the card that's at the bottom of the deck. That is going to serve as the foundation and the base card for the week. So the card is the 9 of Ariel. And so if you work with traditional tarot, this is also known as the 9 of Pentacles. So this is a great card to have as our foundation. For me, the 9 of Ariel represents coming into a place of independence and self-sufficiency. So we are gathering our resources because Pentacles, or Ariel in this case, she is the angel of material resources. This is a time of collecting our resources or being on the path, because I'm looking at the woman on the unicorn, being on the path to becoming more independent or more self-sufficient. This is a card of material gain. The 9 in tarot numerology for me represents attainment. And it's very interesting because if you take the numbers in 2016, which is the year, and you add them straight across, so 2 plus 0 is 2, plus 1 is 3, and then 3 plus 6 is 9. So we are in a universal 9 year. And that just represents, this is a time collectively, because the universal year represents energies that we all will experience. This is going to be a year of attainment. This is going to be a year of wrapping things up. So all the things that we have learned in terms of our own personal life lessons, or as a collective over the last 8 years, are coming to some fruition this year. So it's very interesting that we have the 9 here. 9 is a number, in the case of the universal year, is about letting go and things being wrapped up, because it sets the stage for the next year, which will be a universal year of 1, and 1 always represents new beginnings. So in that kind of sense, the 9 here could be the same thing, that we are embarking on a path of, and notice how I said independence, self-sufficiency. That's the energy of a 1 in numerology. The 1 represents the individual, it represents independence, it represents leadership, things of that nature. So I find it very interesting that I'm being led to talk about those things. But the 9 of Ariel is about, again, moving towards a place of becoming more independent, more self-sufficient. Sometimes this card represents financial independence and financial self-sufficiency. So that may be a concern for some of us watching this video, that, you know, we are in a process of wanting to become more financially self-sufficient. Sometimes this card can represent teaching and training. So it could be no matter what it is that you're embarking on. Again, the horse being a symbol of embarking on something, moving towards something. It could be that you may find yourself seeking out the help of a teacher or getting some kind of training. Something along those lines is going to help you with that sense of independence and self-sufficiency. So I'm seeing that as a foundation with the 9 of Ariel. The card reads, your dreams are fulfilled. Hard work leads to great success. A love for the beautiful things in life. So that's the 9 of Ariel. So now, going to the first card representing the beginning of the week, Monday, Tuesday. Oh, look at this. We have the King of Ariel. So now we have 2 Ariel cards back to back. So again, this is a sense of material resources. It's a sense of, stepping into becoming more self-sufficient, financially independent, material gain, those kinds of energies. The King of Ariel for me, notice how I said self-sufficiency and independence. One of the things with the King of Ariel for me, it represents self-employment. So I always get excited to see this because a lot of my clients are people who are moving from a place of being an employee for someone else and moving into doing their own thing. And that's a form of self-sufficiency. Like they want to do it on their own. They want to do their own thing for themselves, by themselves. So I get really excited when I see King of Ariel. If you are not the type who is moving into your own thing in terms of business, then I also see the suit of Ariel as talking about what we value, because Ariel being the suit of material possessions, everything that we own has some sense of value to us, or else we wouldn't have acquired it. Everything that we buy says something about what we value, and I'm saying that because this card, King of Ariel, is the sign of Taurus in astrology for me, and I always read that as the sign of ownership and possessions and money. So everything that we spend money on says something about what it is that we value as individuals. So this week going forward, the King of Ariel is asking you, what is it that you value? And it's not just materially speaking. I also see the suit of Ariel as being aligned with your own sense of value, your own sense of worth. So the king in tarot he has reached the stage of maturity. He has mastered his world. And so the King of Ariel is a person who has mastered the physical realm. In doing so, he also realizes his own sense of worth and value. So at the beginning of the week, understand that you have value, that you have worth, and this is the week to start really looking at your sense of worth. I'm really feeling that with the change of the year, and with 9 of Ariel coming before the King of Ariel, this is the time for us to consider our own sense of worth and value, and that we have something of value to offer to the world. If you are of the mind that this card represents self-employment and doing your own thing, whatever it is that you do, it has value in the world. People do need it. The card reads, your plans are working out very well. Professional and financial success using resources wisely. So in order to accumulate more, sometimes we have to look at how we're using the resources that we currently have. So you might want to consider the idea of like appreciating what it is that you have, because as you appreciate it, you'll get more of it. That's just a spiritual principle. I always like it to my Christian background, where there's a saying in scripture like, how can you be the master of much if you're not mastering, going with the king, if you're not mastering the little that you have? It's the idea of being a good steward of what it is that you have, and then the universe will entrust you with more because you're being good with what it is that you currently have. So that's my take on the King of Ariel. So now moving to the middle of the week, which is Wednesday, Thursday, we have the 10 of Raphael. Okay, this is beautiful. Okay, the 10 of Raphael. If life is a story, and it is, it's your story, this is the part in the story where we reach the end and they say, and they lived happily ever after. So in the middle of the week, you may have an experience, an emotional or spiritual experience, because the suit of Raphael for me represents something of an emotional or spiritual nature that leaves you with a sense of happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction. Now, it's very interesting. The dichotomy here is that the suit of Ariel represents the material, and the suit of Raphael, which is cups if you go with traditional tarot, represents the emotional and the spiritual. So there's a nice interesting thing here, because it says that the physical and the spiritual are closely connected. I'm going with the idea that these two cards are back to back. They're closely connected. The 10 of Raphael in that sense for me represents emotional growth and spiritual growth. So the 10 represents completion. It represents a level change. So coming to the end of a situation that ends happily, it ends successfully, and it also allows you to move on to the next stage or level. Now, there's a caveat here, because each card for me in tarot represents a great side and it has its challenging side. So in the middle of the week with the 10 of Raphael, we're being encouraged not to be in situations in which we feel a sense of being emotionally overwhelmed. I sometimes see this as, being in over my head in some shape, form, or fashion, because the 10s in that sense can represent like too much of a good thing. I'm hearing in my head, for those of you who know the singer Kylie Minogue, she had a song called Too Much of a Good Thing. So I'm hearing that in my head. So for some of us, we may be experiencing too much of a good thing, or that the idea of having too much, going with the 2 Ariel cards, the idea of having too much in terms of abundance is just overwhelming. Now I'm seeing someone who shared a dream with me when I was out at a convention, and I happened to strike up a conversation with her, and she asked me what I did, and I told her that I work with dreams, and so she shared this dream with me about koi fish, and I'll put a link to it in the description box below for those of you who may want to check out how I responded to that. But basically, in a nutshell, the dream was about her feeling a sense of like, what would she do if she had too much? And so she was going through a challenging time with being too abundant, as if there is such a thing. But for her, it was the idea of having too much would be emotionally overwhelming. So I'm seeing her and that conversation in my head, which means that there may be some people who are challenged with the idea of having too much and they feeling overwhelmed with it. Now I'm looking at both the 10 of Raphael and the 9 of Ariel, and each one, I'll raise this up just a little bit so you can see, each one has a rainbow. So for me, the rainbow can represent a couple of things. For me, it represents a covenant with God, an agreement with God, and so if that is a strong word for you, then whatever you would call God in your reference, in your world, sometimes I call God, God, but then there are other times when I refer to God as spirit, as infinite intelligence, as divine mind, as unified field. I have many names for God, and I just use them in whatever way feels comfortable for me at the moment. So whatever that higher power is for you, whatever you call it, this is an opportunity for you to come into agreement with it, with the rainbows, come into agreement with it in terms of where you are now and where you would like to be. Now we're at the beginning of the year, so this is all for me about the time of, some people make resolutions, some people set intentions, whatever that process is for you. This is the time for you to come into agreement with spirit, because there's a saying, as above, so below. So whatever it is in heaven is also in spirit. So, and when you do that, when you get into agreement, I just had this thought, you ask for whatever it is that you're asking, or whatever it is that you're intending, visualize it already being done. So coming from a place of gratitude, going with the 9 of Ariel, coming to a place of gratitude for already having it. And it's funny that I'm saying that and I'm looking at the King of Ariel coming before this. Asking for it as if, or speaking about it as if you already have it. So whenever you do your dialogue with God, and even the angels, sometimes the the rainbow can represent all the angels, because there's the 7 colors in the rainbow, which is like akin to the 7 archangels and the 7 chakras, things of that nature. So it could be not just with your higher power, but with the angels. Get into agreement with the angels. And so when we're, you know, asking for something or petitioning or praying, whatever the word you want to use, consider asking for it as if you have already received it. So you can start off by saying thank you for whatever your intention is. So that's the middle of the week. So again, the idea of like something coming to a completion, something that's going to be emotionally and spiritually rewarding and satisfying, and something that's going to help you move to the next phase or level of your spiritual growth. The card reads, love and blessings fill your life, harmonious relationships with family members, and happily ever after. So that's the Ten of Raphael. So now moving to the card that's going to round out the week, we have the Five of Michael. Okay. So now this is interesting in the sense of where I talked about self-worth and self-value with the 2 Ariel cards. The Ten of Raphael can be, you know, either family, and it could be a community. The 10 is a number of community, but I tend to look at this as the marriage and family card. So this can be family. I'm saying, and the reason why I'm setting it up that way is because the 5 of Michael can represent, you know, coming to the end of the week, and we're needing to call on Archangel Michael in particular to help us set some much needed boundaries. Whenever I get the 5 of Michael, which is in traditional tarot also known as the 5 of Swords, I always tell people that there may be a situation in which we are being asked to draw a line in the sand and set some much needed boundaries. This card is also known as, where I said this was the happily ever after and achieving a success, this card is also known as the price of victory. So sometimes we can be successful, we can be victorious, we can have a triumph, but it comes at some price or cost to us, which means that there may be something we have to sacrifice or give up in order to have that victory. And so the question with this card is, are you willing to make that sacrifice? Are you willing to give up? And usually, and when I say give up what no longer serves and supports you. That's what this card is. So we can call on Archangel Michael in this particular case, because if we're having difficulty with family, let's say, because that's the energy that's coming in for me, family, let's say, then this is the time where we have to stand in our own self-worth and self-value and say, we matter. I'm seeing another deck in my collection, and in that deck, the pentacles is called the suit of matter. So we have to get to a place where we matter. We matter enough to say that I'm going to set some boundaries with some people who are close to me, some people I have some close emotional relationships with. I need to set some boundaries. And here's the thing. Once you set those boundaries, you have to maintain them. And so the 5 here is a number of change. And so you're changing the dynamics of that relationship. And so what happens is some people get threatened with the idea of change. I call it when you flip the script, other people do one or two things. Either they kind of just leave the situation, and sometimes the 5 of Michael is about people walking away. Sometimes they leave the situation, and sometimes they stay on board. If they stay on board, then your job at that point is to make sure that you maintain your boundary. Sometimes when people cross other people's boundaries, it's because they see that you have not maintained your boundary. You have crossed your line first. And so when they see that, they say, well, if you're not going to honor your line, I'm not going to honor your line. So if you're going to set a boundary with people this week, a much needed boundary, you have to make sure that once you set it, you maintain it. You don't cross it. And so sometimes if you do that, then if you're experiencing trouble with a family member, and if you do that, then the Ten of Raphael is a good card to have, because it can represent like a reunion of some kind. So we've had some difficulty, and now we're going to work on this sense of establishing a reunion, but there has to be some change, and there has to be some boundaries set. And it starts with you understanding that you matter. You are important. So that is the 5 of Michael. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to looking at what the overall lesson card is from the major arcana. We're going to be looking at the King of Ariel for this, the 10 of Raphael, and the 5 of Michael. And we're going to take the numbers that are on all the cards. And so for me in tarot, unlike when I work with Lenormand, instead of 13, which is the number for kings in Lenormand, I'm going to go with 14. because there's an additional court card in the tarot and not in the Lenormand. So the king here would be 14. Then add the 10 would make that 24. And then 5 and 24 is 29. And so that adds to 11. And in numerology, 11 is a master number. And so I tend not to reduce it. So we're looking for the 11th card in the deck. And in this particular deck, the 11th card is Strength, because they have changed, or I should say not changed, but gone back to the original numbering of the major arcana, and there's been a change when the Rider-Waite was published between the 8th card and the 11th card, which are Strength and Justice. So in some decks you will find that they have changed them, and that is why. So here we have the Strength card, and this is perfect in light of everything that I've said. There are no mistakes. I love the wisdom of tarot. So the Strength card is, like I said, number 11. This is Archangel Ariel, and so she is known as the Lioness of God. She is like, similar to Michael, she is like a warrior type angel. So, you know, this week we may be feeling inclined, if you work with angelic energy, you may feel inclined to call on Archangel Ariel. She's also the angel here. Remember now, she's here in the suit of Pentacles, so she helps also with, you know, things in the material world. She's really big on environmentalism and things having to do with animals and things of that nature. So if that's your call, that's another aspect of Archangel Ariel. But in the Strength card in particular, this is a card that represents confidence. It represents being courageous and brave. It represents standing in your strength. This is a card of personal strength and spiritual strength. This is also a card of self-esteem. And I love the fact that I'm looking at the way she's looking, her and the lion. And I don't know if I said this, but Ariel actually means the Lioness of God. So that's why she's paired with the lion here on the card. But she's looking, her and the lion are both looking over here at the King of Ariel. And what did I say about the King of Ariel? It's about mastering your own sense of value and worth. And so that's really what our self-esteem and self-confidence is. You know, we're being asked to look at that place of confidence, and look at that place of esteem, knowing that we matter, that we're important. And just as we are important, everyone else is equally important. You know, everybody has to be confident at times. Everybody has to have a time where they have to stand in their personal power. They have to stand up for what feels right for them. So this week we're being asked to stand in our own sense of personal strength. And when I said about setting those boundaries, we are going to have to be strong in doing that. The other thing with the Strength card in terms of that is that we have to be gentle, and we have to be patient, and we have to be unconditionally loving. Those are the attributes of the Strength card. We can't come at people from a place of brute force. You know, we can't force things to happen. So, you know, when I talked about the Five of Michael being a place of where we're going to flip the script if we need to and set some boundaries, we have to be patient and gentle with people. They're not going to get it right the first time. You know, that would be a wonderful thing if everybody could get something right the first time, but we don't. You know, we're striving towards perfection. None of us are perfect. And so you have to be willing to allow people, you know, to kind of learn their way in a new relationship, because you're teaching them how to relate to you in a different way. Going with the 10 of Raphael underneath this card, you know, when we are in relationships with people, we teach people how to treat us. And so if we want that to be different, if we want to experience something different, if we want to be treated in a different way, we have to teach people how to do that. And we have to be gentle and patient as they do that. I always tell people, I'm seeing one person in particular, that everybody we come in contact with does not have the owner's manual or the instruction manual on how to have a relationship with you. You have to be the one to teach them that. And so you have to show them, you have to demonstrate what's going to work for you and what's not. But when you're showing them what's not working for you, you have to be gentle and you have to be loving. Because you would want that from them to you. The card reads, strength and grace through kindness, self-confidence, and forgiveness. So there may be a point this week where we may need to forgive other people and also forgive ourselves. So that's a strength card. And so now, even though I said you wouldn't reduce this, I'm going to take the 11 and reduce it to 2, because in traditional numerology you would write the number as 11/2. And so the 11 in numerology is a number that represents, it's the spiritual teacher number. And so yeah, that's a master number, and so it requires vibrating at a higher frequency. And so sometimes we can choose not to vibrate at that frequency. And so if we're going to go with the 2, then the card would be the High Priestess. And so I love this in this regard. It brings us right back to the foundation card, which is the 9 of Ariel, because I started off this reading by saying this is a card about independence and self-sufficiency. One of the lessons that I have learned with the High Priestess over the years that I've been working with tarot is that she represents independence. So following the strength card, again, it's just about learning to stand up for yourself. This is Archangel Haniel, and so this represents going with your intuition. No accident that Archangel Ariel in the strength card is standing next to or sitting next to a lion. Anytime I see animals, it represents going with our instincts. And the strength card represents the astrological sign of Leo, so I always attribute Leo with your stomach. And so with the High Priestess, she's all about honoring your intuition, learning to listen to that still small voice, and also learning how your intuition speaks to you, because it doesn't speak to everyone in the same way. And so this is about, honoring your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, honor that. If it feels right, honor that. But I also say, if intuition is a word, you get hung up on, then this card is about going with your instincts, trusting your gut, that kind of thing. So, but you're being asked to do that. But again, the High Priestess is about learning to become more independent. She's standing in between 2 pillars. And so this could be representative of, being an in-between stage. Like I'm in between. So it's not, you haven't quite gotten all the way there yet, but you're making progress. So celebrate the progress that you've made as you're moving along. It's no accident that I said it over the 10 of Raphael, which I said is about spiritual growth. This is a spiritual card, so you may be exploring new forms of spirituality, something of a metaphysical nature. It's about embarking on something like that. It could be like you find a teacher, going back to the 9 of Ariel where I said about teaching and training, or that you take a course or a study and you do it independently, you do it on your own. That's how I got into tarot. I was pretty much self-taught. I went to the library, checked out a book on tarot, and that kind of set me on the path after I had a dream. That's the other thing about the High Priestess, about, intuitive insights or psychic insights. So I had a dream first about tarot, and then that led me into tarot. And one of the things with the High Priestess is actually being a tarot reader. That's how I, sometimes see it. But, but I saying that because the thing that you might want to learn, if it's a metaphysical topic or a spiritual topic, something that's going to help build you up, spiritually speaking, it may be something that you do on your own if you actually don't find a teacher. And then I'm seeing this down the line. What happens is that the universe is very wise, so that the very thing that you are learning is going to be the thing down the road that you teach to other people. Because this is the number 2, and so I always see it as the balance. So in life, we're always at some point, we're either the student or the teacher, but we are both. And so if you're taking on the role of studying something now, so you're the student, at some point down the line, you're going to become the teacher, and you're going to teach it to people, because the law of attraction is going to bring the people to you who are like one step behind the very thing that you have just learned. And so you're in a place to teach them what you have learned. And the High Priestess represents waiting for people to come to her, and then she will give them the knowledge that they are seeking. But they have to come to her. And so I'm seeing that as the law of attraction. So now, rounding out your reading, or summing it up, starting off the week, we have the King of Ariel. So this is about looking at your resources. If you're setting the intention of acquiring more, this card is saying master what it is that you have now, and you'll set the stage to increase that, because whatever we are thankful for and grateful for multiplies and increases. That's a spiritual principle. Also, too, if you are embarking on doing your own thing with your own self-employment venture, then this card is saying seek out the resources that are going to help you move that along. And also to understand, I almost left this part out, understand that if those two things don't apply to you, then understand that you matter, that you are important, that you have value and worth in this world. And we need you. The middle of the week, Ten of Raphael, this is about reaching a situation that is emotionally and satisfying, emotionally and spiritually, satisfying and rewarding. It also sets the stage for possibly a reunion if you've been having trouble with members in your community, your spiritual community, or your family. Then this could set the stage for some kind of reunion. And then the last part is about don't let a situation in the middle of the week come to you that allows you to feel emotionally overwhelmed. If that is the case, call on your higher power, call on your angels to help you with that sense of overwhelm. And then rounding out the week, the Five of Michael, we would come to the end of the week where we need to consider setting some much needed boundaries, drawing our line in the sand. And if we're telling people this is my line in the sand, don't cross it, then you cannot cross it, because we teach people how to treat us. And so if we don't honor our boundaries, they're not going to honor our boundaries either. It may be the better part of valor to walk away from a situation than to remain engaged in it. Be mindful of the words that you use with other people. Be mindful of you finding yourself bickering with people, arguing with people, feeling a need to have the last word. Then you're holding your position that you want to be right and you want to make them wrong. Rethink that, reconsider that. That's the 5 energy. Change that, that kind of thing. But, going with that, if you're going to make a choice of some kind, then this card is saying you could be successful in that, but what would you be willing to give up, because it may come at some cost or price to you. So the angel that has shown up mostly through the reading is Archangel Ariel. So those of us who are, struggling with confidence and our self-esteem, call on Archangel Ariel this week to assist you. So this has been your week in tarot. I am James Himm Mitchell, and I'm so excited and I'm so happy that you have joined me with this first reading of the new year. And so I look forward to sharing this space here with you again in our next video. And until then, I'm hoping that you have a tarot-tastic week and angel blessings, and take care.